Hello everyone, this is El Toasty Pop Tart, and today I'm going to be reviewing Project Hospital Infectious Diseases Department DLC that just came out. This came out approximately a couple days ago from the time of this recording, and I've put a couple hours into it ever since. As you can see, I've set up pretty much an entire 2 floors worth of the infectious diseases overall. There is a morgue to the right over there. Because this map did not have it pre-built on it, but this is just some general impressions of it and my thoughts on it. So with the infectious diseases, you are basically tasked with seeing multiple patients that have different ailments. So like if we come down here, for example, this gentleman that's in the bed is dealing with tuberculosis. With this game before, I believe tuberculosis was seen in the internal medicine department, but I'm not 100% sure. So tuberculosis isn't something so wild per se, but now you have these isolation rooms. Now granted, my hospital is kind of overflowing with patients when it comes to infectious diseases. I automatically put all of my patients that come into this department under my care because one thing that this DLC adds is to say you have a patient with an infectious disease that's highly contagious, which I'll show you just here in a second. It can actually infect staff and other members. So these are what these isolation rooms do. So if we come down here, I believe this gentleman has COVID-19. So this is something that's popular that's come out this year that a lot of people have been dealing with, unfortunately. But that's just showing you that some of these diseases. So he has COVID-19, and if you look here, it says highly contagious right under the infectious disease logo. And basically what that means is if he has this disease or any disease that is highly infectious or highly contagious, your people are susceptible to becoming infected with it, or even your staff, and then it can just snowball throughout your entire facility. I luckily on this playthrough have not had anyone like that, to my knowledge, but I've seen some other people upload videos saying, you know, this is what happened, here's why, here's how. So you have this gentleman here with COVID-19, like I said, highly contagious is how you know if there's something that you need to put in an isolation room. This is just the base. If you come up here and come to the build mode and you come under infectious diseases, you will see the isolation units. This is just the pre-built ones that I've put on here just to try out. But so COVID-19's in here. Ebola, whenever that was popular, I believe that was back in like 2014 roughly is when it was popular. 2014, yeah, I believe that was right. Anyways, so with that, they have isolation rooms, and with that, something they added into every department is this little biohazard area. Basically how that fixes it is whenever a staff member comes in through this door over here and comes in, they automatically put on gloves and a face mask before entering into one of these rooms. Now, I've not run into the issue of, say, this gentleman here with COVID-19 has to come over to the cardiology unit. I've not run into an issue with him because they have special transports, which I'll try and get in this video for you all. He just comes over here and they're in special stretchers that are, I believe, negative pressure, whole 9 yards that they're currently using in hospitals today. But you can use these for anywhere. You could put it in your ER. I ran into the issue is I figured, you know, you have people coming in off the street with possible COVID-19, Ebola, the bubonic plague coming up here to your doctors. You figure you'd want them protected. But one thing I ran into is if you put a biohazard area into where the doctor's office is, it somehow kicks them out as employees, and it's just a reoccurring thing where they try and show up every day. So I could keep doing this, and I'd have 3 days worth of employees hired trying to come back every single day. I've simply just alleviated that by just firing them whenever it kept popping up. But other than that, I really like this DLC. I think it's very unique. It's cool to see all the different ailments that people can have. Like you have this gentleman here who could have the Pacific Coast tick fever, the African tick bite fever, or the Flinders Island spotted fever, or tick-borne encephalitis. A lot of these, like I said, had to be put in isolation rooms because I was running out of rooms over here in the regular ward. But like the regular ward, you see you have this lady here with the same thing as one that's over in isolation. So that's something with any management. I mean, if you have to put them in here, you have to. See, we're kind of starting to run out of isolation rooms with the amount of patients you're getting, because I've noticed after taking over every single patient down here is that as soon as you discharge one, you'll get one or two in place of them. So you're constantly busy with this DLC for the infectious diseases, and I assume that's the same principle for everything else. So as you can see here, this guy has septicemia plague. This is another thing that's highly contagious, and he has to be in an isolation room. Unless, I've noticed with the ICU, I believe this gentleman was in the ICU for a while. They don't worry about masks and all that down in the ICU. I believe that's just a fix-all, so it doesn't damage or hurt anything, because the ICU doesn't carry over to the infectious diseases. So staff changes. All of your staff are going to have some sort of experience in epidemiology. And of course, they'll do all of your diagnostics for it, and your nursing staff hasn't changed whatsoever. You have your other basic stuff. You have your on-call room, your nurses station, diagnostic units, the regular ward, restrooms, common rooms, more wards, cardiology units, and all of that is found right here. I usually use these for most because I'm not too creative when it comes to building this. Whenever you play this game, you're more than welcome to just build a blank room and add stuff in there however you see fit. But they didn't do anything too wild with this one. I mean, the newest thing really out of the entire game is the isolation units, and of course the diseases and how you treat them. But if we sit here and play for a minute, I bet we might be able to see one in a special transport unit. Now, I've pretty much, on this playthrough, stayed up here the entire time. So I don't necessarily know if EMS can bring in patients down below, but I believe in one of the screenshots I saw an ambulance bring in a patient down here, and they automatically come in the specialized stretcher unit. So of course you got your stretcher here, and they'll have something over it that looks basically like a negative pressure room for your stretchers. I am playing with quite a bit of mods on here, and that's just simply quality of life mods, extra stuff like your sexual health, oncology, and stuff like that. I disabled most of them because whenever I just didn't feel like building those departments quite yet compared to some others, just because I wanted to see the infectious diseases. So most of the patients that come in for those issues aren't necessarily here for those issues because I turned off the department's ability individually for evaluating them and seeing what diseases plaguing them. So it's just a bunch of patients coming back up here. Hopefully we can see an isolation one. I believe even the simple ones, if they have to go for a exam, which I'm trying to find, like say a CT scan here for one of them, or some sort of scan of any sort. A lot of them don't really have to go anywhere once they're in isolation, I've noticed with this. So you'll see you got like MERS in here also that has to be in a isolation room. So the one downside, this doesn't do with the DLC, but taking over a department up here, no matter what you do, every single patient is yours. So you can get flooded with results. But I really wanted to take care of this hospital when it comes to infectious diseases. Overall, like I said, I think it's a great DLC. I think the people that make Project Hospital, I can't remember their names I think it's Oxymoron Gaming, actually. I'm going to go with that. I think the people that make this game have done a really good job with the DLCs they've come out with. Like the last one was, I believe, the General Services, pretty much, DLC. And with that, I mean, they brought in like pharmacy, cafeteria, a morgue. I think those are all good things. They've talked about like helicopters and like landing pads and different my mind's drawing a blank. Different departments, such as like pediatrics and various items like that. But as you see, people come up here. So this gentleman could either have HPS or MERS, which are both highly contagious, and he will end up in an isolation. But with that, right now, from what I've noticed, he's not going to infect anyone else that's walking by. With him sitting out here until it is confirmed he has that, I believe. And then he's put in isolation and taken care of from there. Let's see here. Try and pull up someone's thing here. So of course you got like West Nile, Valley Fever, relapsing fever. It's amazing what things they've brought up, and with recently going through a bunch of schooling for the medical field, a lot of these diseases aren't talked about. So I mean, one thing they do really well is kind of just giving a synopsis of what's going on. So say for example you've never heard of pregnancy cystis, which that's a gynecology mod that would deal with it, but it tells you a little bit about it. You know, like cystis is an inflammation or infection of the bladder that causes burning sensation when peeing. It's just cool to read about. I mean, there's a little bit of information. You can tell they definitely do their research, and this is definitely a game. If you're looking at it, I would buy this DLC probably first before the morgue and the one that has the administration in with it. Just because I think this is a little bit cooler than running a morgue or a administration department. But overall, like I said, it's really cool. And as you can see over here, there's an epidemic outbreak, so you're going to get more people with infectious style diseases out here that are coming to your hospital to get evaluated and the proper treatment they need. Another thing for people, it might be kind of overwhelming for you, I've noticed, but whenever you take over a department, you have a whole lot less issues of patients crashing. Because my biggest complaint with this game is say you have a patient down in cardiology that isn't doing too hot, and you look at it and you're like, well, the doctor's a 5-star doctor, why haven't they done anything for this patient? And you see that they only have them on beta blockers when they need to be on beta blockers, oxygen, steroids on board, they need blood, all that. And I just like taking over this department because I feel like out of all the departments, this could be the most destructive. You go from having one patient with like COVID-19 or Ebola to half the hospital and half of your staff, which this is just on Sandbox, so money's not really an issue. But if you're worrying about that, that could become an issue very quickly, and you'd have a lot of people leaving. Because at the end of the day, you want to make money, just like every other hospital would out there. Unfortunately, healthcare is very much so about money. I feel like they do a very good job in representing that want and need. But if you come down here, all the patients that I currently have down here, I have a gentleman that's currently collapsing with dengue fever. I didn't even know he was in the ICU until now. But so he's getting put in the ICU. We'll go ahead and get him a bunch of this because I don't want him to pass away from this. But as you can see, for example, dengue fever is not highly contagious, so it's not something you have to put him in an isolation room for. But once again, if it's something that if you don't have enough room, you're welcome to put them in an isolation room. It's not like they have to have something. They don't have to have COVID to put them in an isolation room. But I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good synopsis of what's going on with this DLC. Like I said, they did a great job with this DLC. I'm very, very pleased with this DLC, and I think what they have in the future is going to be great for this game. All the kind of things they hint at and they keep going at. So I believe the base game is roughly $20. This DLC, I believe, was around $7 to $10, somewhere in there. So overall, I mean, it's $30 for a good time killer. I mean, this is a game you can play just for an hour or two, trying to kill time, say, before friends are getting on, or you have to go out for the night or something like that. But overall, I'd give this DLC about a 9 out of 10. Great DLC, great not characters, but great diseases to sit here and combat. But overall, I would highly recommend this game, and I think everyone should check it out. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. Like, comment, and subscribe if you so do please. Y'all have a great day. Goodbye.